Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Mondays with Mike. Today, we're talking about leap years, leap days. What in the world is this all about? Well, it is amazing when you really get into it. And so we're going to get into the science a little bit and a little bit of the history behind leap years and leap days. And so hopefully you better understand it and maybe have an appreciation for the science and the math and everything that actually goes in to figuring all this stuff out. So first of all, I hope you had a great weekend. It was my birthday weekend. I had a birthday on Friday, actually, but worked all day and stuff, so I didn't really do that much. But I did want to thank everybody who commented and left me wishes on my Facebook page. It was very, very nice of you. So I really, really appreciated it very much. And, had some really nice times with the family. Got some cool presents, too. I got, how I love whiteboards. So I got some magical whiteboards from my mom. I'm going to bring them in here one day because it's pretty cool. And then my brother got me a Sports Illustrated magazine from the actual day that I was born. And Bobby Clark from the Philadelphia Flyers is on the cover. And so I was kind of paging through it. It's really neat because you get to see how things have changed over the years. Every ad was for cigarettes. The whole thing is filled with cigarette ads. So, and cars. And there were some cool 1976 Cadillac ads. And let's see, maybe there was a Chevy or a Ford ad in there too. But it was just really cool. So I'll share that with you at a later date. So, let's talk about it. First of all, what is a leap year? What is a leap day? All right. Well, every 4 years, we have one day added to our calendar, and that day is February the 29th. So we only have that every 4 years. Why is that? Well, our normal year calendar has 365 days in it, but it actually takes 365 and a fraction of a day to move around the sun. So let's just say that fraction is something like 6 hours. So it takes us maybe 24 hours, 365 days plus a few hours to go all the way around the sun. Well, after 10 or 20 years or 100 years, those hours add up, and then before you know it, Christmas is in July, you know what I mean? So that wasn't going to work. So by adding one day every 4 years, we can correct for that. Now, if that's your only rule, is that you add one day every 4 years, that also will overcorrect, and the calendar will end up messed up also. So the second rule is, so the first rule of leap years is the year is divisible by 4. Okay? So if we pull up our handy-dandy calendar here, a calculator here about the calendar, and we'll take this year, okay, and this year obviously is 2024, which is divisible by 4, 506, okay? It's divisible by 4, so that means it's a leap year. But there's an exception. If a leap year ends with double zeros, let's say the year 1700, 1800, 1900, those were not leap years because they are divisible by 100. Basically, if it's the turn of a century, not a leap year, with one exception, and that is the year 2000, which was a leap year. If the year is divisible by 400, then it is a leap year. This is complicated, so just to summarize, if you could divide the year evenly by 4, it is a leap year, unless it's also divisible by 100, and then with the one exception being if it's divisible by 400. So the year 1600, the year 2000, the year 2400, well, none of us are going to be here, those are all going to be leap years. But the year 2100, if we live to be that old, will not be a leap year. So why? All right, well, let's turn to the globe. So here we have Earth, right? Beautiful Earth. And the Earth, as you know, it turns once per day, once every 24 hours. Almost. It actually turns about once every 24 hours, 56 minutes, and a handful of seconds. So nothing is exact. So we have a 24-hour day, but it's not exactly 24 hours. We have a 365-day year, but it's not exactly 365 days. So all of these things we need to make corrections for. So the combination of the day not being completely 24 hours and the orbit not being completely 365 days is what leads to all of the hubbub. Okay, it's what leads to all the fuss. Now, if you really want your mind blown, think about this. The Earth here travels around the sun once a year, once every 365 days, right? The Earth does not travel at the same speed around the sun all year. Because if we got to go back to Earth science class here, right? Maybe a lot of you remember it. A lot of you probably do remember it. A lot of you want to forget it. But the planets go around the sun in what's called an ellipse, which is not a perfect circle. It's like stretched out a little bit. Now, the Earth's orbit is pretty close to a circle, but not exactly. So there are certain times of the year when we're closer to the sun, which is December. That's when we make our closest approach to the sun, late December and early January, I believe. And then the opposite is true. We're farthest away from the sun in June. So the effect of that is that the actual length of the day, amount of time that it takes us to here turn around in a circle, the exact time that this takes is actually longer in the wintertime by about something like 30 seconds. It's about 30 seconds longer. Why? Because the Earth is close to the sun and we're reaching our maximum speed around the sun. We're really reaching our fastest point. So it takes that much longer. So the Earth has spun around 360 degrees, but now it's moved, right? Because it's moving really fast around that part of the sun. So it has to twist just a little 30 seconds more to complete that day. And then likewise, as we go through springtime, and we're actually at that part of the orbit when we're moving away from the sun, sort of, that part of the orbit, we slow down a little bit, and so the day, actually, we don't have to catch up on that orbit on the rotation as much, and we actually have a shorter day. So it's something like 10 seconds shorter during that time of the year as opposed to 30 seconds longer in the winter. So there's a lot of complicated math that goes into this. And there were astronomers and philosophers. This is going back thousands of years who have tried to figure this stuff out, from the Mayan calendars to the early, the Greek calendars and the Chinese calendars and all of the calendars that came out of the Middle East and Africa. You had this variety of calendars, and everybody was trying to figure out, this, like I said, this is going back 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. Everybody's trying to figure out, how do we sync up our calendar so that the same day, like back then, the important days for them were like the winter solstice and the spring equinox and the summer solstice. Like they wanted to know, when the sun was going to be at its highest angle in the sky, when certain planets or stars were going to be visible, and they wanted it to align on the same day. So like January 1st, or the first day of the year in whatever calendar it was, the goal was for that to be the first day of winter, or the first day of spring, actually, one of the two. But they couldn't quite figure out how to get it to line up every year. So for example, in the Roman Empire, they had 10 days. They had 10 months in the year, which is why we have, September, October, which is 8, November, which is 9, and December, which means 10. So December means the 10th month. Obviously, it's not the 10th month, right? So they used to have 10 months, and each month was 30 days long. And so they had 300 days in a year. And I think it was actually like 304 days. A couple of the months might have been 31 days. But regardless, they had 10 months, and they would run out of days, basically, at the end of the year. And so I was reading about it this morning, and going back to, this is like ancient Rome, like, before Christ. This is like 700 BC. That they would have a time of the year where it was like undefined. You weren't in a month, which was normally during wintertime. And I guess it wasn't as important to them because maybe they're not harvesting crops or something. But it's strange. Like, they didn't know what to do. So they would have these 10 months, and they would get to the end of December, and then there would be like this weird time where January hadn't started yet. It was really odd. So anyway, and then about 700 years later, they figured out that they were going to add 2 more months to the calendar, June and July, and so that made the 12-month calendar and brought us up to 360 days, I think. But it would still be off. And so every few years, the emperor would decide to just by fiat add a few days to the calendar. I think there was even a month that they would install every couple of decades to help realign the calendar. Well, that's not very good. So Pope Gregory instituted a new calendar hundreds of years later. And let me get you a year on that. The Gregorian calendar was put into effect in 1582. So it took them about 1,500 years to figure out how to get the calendar the way it is now. Because they hadn't figured out, the average day is 365.24. The average year is 365.24 days long. So it took 1,500 years from getting the calendar almost right to actually getting the calendar right. And now we measure time so specifically that it's even down to the second. So scientists will add periodic leap seconds to the year, leap seconds to time, because a day is not a day. An Earth second is not the defined second that we have based on the speed of light. So it's really complicated. So the bottom line is this. Basically, every 4 years we have a leap day with a couple of exceptions. This is one of those years. And it does have an interesting effect. First of all, if you were born on February the 29th, you get to enjoy your birthday actually on your birthday, right? And this year, the spring equinox is also affected by the leap day. So the first day of spring is actually March 19th this year, which is about as early as it gets. Most of the time the first day of spring is like March 21st. That's on average. Sometimes the 22nd, sometimes the 20th. But this year it actually occurs on the 19th. Why is that? Well, because February 29th is sort of inserted where March 1st would have been, right? So what would have been the first day of spring on March 20th is now occurring on March 19th. So that may be a little bit strange to some when we tell you it's the first day of spring and you're like, the 19th, it never happens on the 19th. So it's because of the leap year. So anyway, it's interesting stuff, isn't it? It really is, the history of it, the science of it, all the different cultures that tried to figure this stuff out. And now we mostly have it figured out. But it's amazing that even with the system we have, it is not perfect. You can't make it perfect. Which is why we have to periodically add little leap seconds, literally seconds, to keep the calendar on track. So anyway, cool stuff, right? It is pretty amazing stuff. So that's the main focus of what I wanted to talk about here, the leap years. The other thing is the heat. All right. So today is going to be a warm day. You probably got that from this morning's weather report. This is a look at forecast highs across Texas today. It could be record-shattering heat. So this is a combination of a few factors. One is that the jet stream is pretty far to the north, which is actually going to bring a sort of a rare severe weather threat, I'll show you that here in a minute, to the Midwest, which they don't often get severe weather in February. February severe weather is usually much farther south because the jet stream is usually much farther south. So like Florida sees a lot of February tornadoes and stuff, and we occasionally do too. But today is not one of those days. So these breezy south and southwest winds, I mean, look at Del Rio, Texas. Close to 98 for a high temperature today, and Dallas up to about 94, maybe 95. Their record today is 90. If they hit the mid-90s today, it'll be the hottest, or the fifth earliest day that they've hit in excess of 90 degrees in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Austin and San Antonio, that's right at their record. I think Austin's record today is 87, I believe. Here in Houston, our record is 86, and I think we'll probably make it into the low 80s. Depends on sunshine in your part of the world, but definitely we are looking for unseasonably warm weather. So this map here is going to show us opening things up a little bit from Texas across the bigger portion of the country, which shows, let's just take, for example, Chicago at 68 degrees. You might think 68 is not that warm, but Chicago in February, that is very warm. That would be a record. In fact, I believe their record today is 64, so that would shatter that record. It also is going to be most likely a record high there in Kansas City and in St. Louis, and along with that, by the way, it's going to be very windy too. So lots of record high temperatures are going to be falling across the country through the day today, and then it looks like it's going to last for a while. This is the Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10 day temperature outlook for next week. So this takes us from Sunday through Thursday of next week, the first week of March basically. And the darker red areas are the areas that are favored to have above average temperatures. And looking at this, as we put this in motion, you'll see that Texas, well, yeah, we're in that warm area again. We'll get a brief cool down Wednesday, and then more so Thursday, Friday. It looks kind of drippy, drizzly, and cooler. High temperatures maybe in the 60s, like kind of slightly chilly. But then we're going to warm right back up for the weekend and early next week. In fact, much of the country will as well. So we're going to get close to record highs here over the next couple of days too, along with the rest of the country. The last thing here is that with a lot of this recent warm air, our allergy season is off to an earlier start. So I'm not sure if you've noticed, you probably have, a lot of people out there sniffling and sneezing. You could already see some of the pollen on the roof of your car, if it's parked outside, and that's the oak pollen that's in bloom. So generally the oak trees start to bloom in March, but it looks like they're off to a little bit of an earlier start this year. So the tree pollen is actually measured in the extreme category for the day today, or extremely high. Not as high as it gets, but pretty far up there. The highest that it's been so far this year, definitely. The weed pollen is low. We also have some grass pollen. That's going to be on the increase too. As the temperature stays warm, that grass will start to release its pollen and so forth, and mold spores are low. So got actually a lot to talk about out there. So let me just write this down real quick. So that's what's going on. Fun time of the year, rodeo time. The weather should be overall pretty nice. The weather worked out really well for the barbecue cook-off. The carnival opens tomorrow. The rodeo officially, starts tomorrow night, and the weather's going to be pretty nice. Other than that one little bump in the road coming up on Wednesday, heading into Thursday and early Friday, that's about it. And it's not going to be anything major at all. So the only thing I guess to keep in mind is most of these days are going to be a little bit on the windy side, so definitely hold on to your cowboy hat out there. Otherwise, really no problems. So I want to invite you, if you are not watching this on Fox Local, to download our Fox Local app. It's an app for your smart TV. It allows you to basically cut the cord. You can absolutely cut the cord, save yourself $100, $200, whatever you're paying on cable. You get all of your Fox 26 news, extras. It's set up almost like a website where you go to the Fox Local app on your smart TV and you could scroll down. You could see hurricane gear tests and emergency gear tests from John Dawson. You can see my weekly segment here. Allison Gargaros is going to do a 30-minute cooking show, And, everybody else in the newsroom is just that we're really doing stuff, really doing what we can to give you good content. So you get that all on our Fox Local Smart TV app that you can get at Amazon or Roku or whatever you have. And you can get yourself a pair of rabbit ears. It's like everything, you know how like sometimes things, everything old is new again? Lena DeFlorius told me that tomorrow is National Retro Day. So as part of that, you might want to go to the store and get a pair of rabbit ears. And as old-fashioned as that sounds, you can get Fox 26 on rabbit ears and the other stations, right, on rabbit ears, and then you can just have your internet connection to watch Fox Local and any other streaming platforms like Netflix and stuff you want to watch. Now, let me tell you why the rabbit ears are important. Because Fox Local gives you all of our news content, our special extra content like the after show that comes on at 10 a.m., like what I'm doing right now. But you can't watch football or baseball or basketball, sports and things like that, or our primetime shows. So for that, you pay $20 for a set of rabbit ears. You plug it into the back of the TV, and it's free forever. No monthly fee, nothing. So that's what actually we've done in our house. And it's working out okay so far, because everything that the girls want to watch is basically streaming anyway. And I found that we were paying for TV channels that we're never going to use, and we ended up saving like $170 a month or something. And, you know, in times like these, I'm sure everybody out there can use that. So anyway, something to ponder. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Get some allergy medicine and get ready for Leap Day on Thursday. And don't try to stand up any eggs or brooms or anything unless you really want to. What else was I going to tell you? Oh, Thursday's a special day because I'm going and doing a weather talk at my nephew's school, so that's going to be fun. So if anybody's watching from there, I will see you soon. Shout out to my mom and Neil. Thank you very much for my birthday presents, and I'll see you all probably in less than 2 months, 6 weeks or so. And I want to thank you all for tuning in here for Mondays with Mike, and we'll see you next time. Take care.